Thomas Jefferson is famous for many things, including being one of the founding fathers of the United States, writing the Declaration of Independence, founding the University of Virginia, and political offices, including being President of the U.S. But one of his longer projects was building, remodeling, and constantly improving his home, Monticello. Thomas Jefferson was inspired to remodel his house when he visited Paris. How well did his designs pan out? We toured the first floor last time, so let's head up the staircase to see what the rest of the house looks like. I'm the NYC Traveler, and we're at Monticello in Virginia. Last episode, we talked about how the staircases were narrow because Jefferson did not want to waste space on a grand staircase, and narrow they were. Monticello was first built beginning in 1768. When Jefferson returned from Paris, after having served as Minister of France, he started making plans to remodel the house, creating designs inspired by what he saw and read in Europe. Since he was Secretary of State, Vice President, and ultimately President, he was away from the plantation a lot, from 1784 to 1809, 25 years. During this time, he would correspond with his crew in between visits while the work was being done, which actually started in 1794. The second floor was actually removed and replaced with a mezzanine bedroom level. Despite the fact that Jefferson kept a lot of records, information is actually sketchy about the first Monticello. Some evidence suggests that it was not really completed. But Martha, the mother, died here in 1782 in one of the rooms of the first Monticello, so perhaps it was enclosed and okay to live in. Martha, the daughter, married Thomas Mann Randolph Jr. in 1790 at age 17. Although the Randolphs had their house at Verena and later at Edge Hill, Martha served as hostess at Monticello and at the White House when her dad was president. One of the children was actually born at White House, which was called the President's House at that time. Her husband was a congressman from 1803 to 1807, so they were all in Washington, D.C. sometimes during the same period. Martha was devoted to her father, and by 1804, she was his only surviving child by Martha, her mother. The youngest daughter, Mary, later called Maria, died at the age of 25 at Monticello, 2 months after childbirth. That baby would die 2 years later, leaving only one of Mary's 3 children to live to adulthood. By 1809, after Jefferson left office as president, Martha, the daughter, who was called Patsy in her childhood, and her children were living at Monticello. Her husband, Thomas Randolph, served as Virginia's governor from 1819 to 1822, but Martha spent most of the time at Monticello. There were financial issues for Monticello and the Randolphs' estates. Also, Martha and her husband were having marriage problems and were estranged. By 1825, their 2 farms were foreclosed, with Edge Hill, ironically, being purchased by one of their sons. Martha's father-in-law, Thomas Randolph's father, had financial issues as well, and Martha dealt with the issues of all 3 families: hers, her dad's, and her father-in-law. Thomas Jefferson Randolph, Martha's eldest son, not only bought Edge Hill that was foreclosed by his father, but he tried to manage the finances as well. He helped his mother manage Monticello and was the executor of the estate. His grandfather, President Thomas Jefferson, leased part of the farm Tufton to him, and he moved his family there. He grew up here at Monticello and lived here with his wife for a few months. Later, after Monticello was sold for debts, his mother, Martha, the daughter, alternated living with him and her other children, dying at Edge Hill in 1836. One of the most famous and recognizable features of the house, the dome room. There is a little mystery about its purpose. It seems to have been used mostly for storage, although one of the grandchildren, Thomas Jefferson Randolph, did live here for a few months with his new wife, Jane Hollins Nicholas. The dome was added for Monticello number 2. Jefferson was inspired by buildings and books that he had seen and read in Paris, ultimately choosing a drawing of the ancient Temple of Vesta in Rome, as seen in Palladio's The Four Books of Architecture. But he had to compromise on the design, since Monticello number 1 had an irregular octagon shape. Building it took some compromise, and the dome's construction, along with the roof, had to be considered together. Jefferson designed an innovative system for the roof to compensate for the dome, drainage of water, and temperature control. He favored tin shingles, thinking they would be more practical for the weather. Since the evidence suggests that there was no expressed purpose for the dome, I am going to speculate that it was installed because it looked nice for the outside, adding to the architecture and the decorative purposes of the house. With this episode and last, we've seen the main living areas of the main house. Stay tuned. I'm the NYC Traveler, and we're touring Monticello in Virginia.